Hey guys, DMS here today. I have for you the Harmonicdyne POSEIDON, and we're going to compare it to the Zeus. Let's check it out. Patreon helps make videos like this possible, but it can also help you. Patreon gives you access to my Telegram chat, where you can ask me questions or just come hang out while supporting the channel and the community. You can find out more at the link in the video description. Now, I don't know if you saw my review of the Zeus, but to boil it down, it's a warm-leaning headphone with pretty great soundstage, okay build, and it's very easy to power. Now, POSEIDON, it seems now, is its bigger brother at a slightly higher price tag, unless you get it on the Kickstarter. But is it really any better? Well, let's talk about it, and let's start off with building comfort. As far as comfort is concerned, this headphone is basically identical to its little brother, the Zeus. Seriously, we're talking the same headband, the same pads, about the same weight. The tolerances do feel a little bit tighter. It doesn't quite feel as flimsy in the hand, which I do like, but pretty much it's the same build with different colors. I do like this darker grill mesh on the back. I like that we can't actually see the screws on it as there's a plate covering them up. And the color scheme just looks like a higher end headphone to me than Zeus did. I mean, Zeus is cool, but let's be honest, it really looks like a headphone you got off AliExpress. There's just something nicer about a glossy black finish. And look at this, look at the light reflects off it. Anyway, build is decent. It has dual entry 3.5mm connections, wired the same as Headphone like Sundara, which is great because the cable that comes with this is a pile of crap. It is balanced. It does come with adapters for a few different scenarios if you want to do it single-ended, but oh god, it's just such a crap cable. Why would you use the absolute worst, cheapest connections you possibly could on it? The cable holds a lot of memory, so you can see where it was wound up. What is this connector? This is like the connector you get on the cheapest microphone that you could possibly buy on Amazon. Like, Behringer mics are pretty dang cheap, and they would come with a nicer connector than this. I don't know. The cable works. I don't think it's gonna, like, you know, cause your headphones to explode or anything like that, but it's just not a very good feeling cable. As much as we give Headphone crap for their cables, I've been using the Sundara cable with this, just because it feels so much nicer hanging off the headphone than the one that comes with it. I've broken up sound into two sections. We have objective and subjective. Let's talk about objective sound first. Now, like Zeus, POSEIDON is not a headphone for objectivists. If you came here looking for a headphone that measures really well, you're going to be disappointed, but there's more to a headphone than that. We'll cover that in the subjective bit. But as far as measurements are concerned, this has pretty hard bass roll-off in the sub bass, so this starts rolling around 100 hertz. So you're not going to get much sub bass at all. It's a very, very warm headphone, as I'm sure you can tell here. Warmer than Zeus, actually, which already says a lot because Zeus had a pretty warm overall tonality to it. We have a dip around 1.5K. It comes back up to meet us at 3K, similar to what you get in like a 6XX, but with bigger troughs on either side. And then after that, the treble just rolls off. So that 3K feels a little bit brighter than it actually is. Now, objectively speaking, Zeus is a better headphone. Zeus has less bass roll-off. It's a little bit more linear throughout the entire range. You don't get nearly as much of a dip around 1.5K. It's a little bit more full. And while not a neutral headphone overall, Zeus is the more neutral out of the two, with the POSEIDON being the darker, warmer relative, with the exception of that 3 kHz range. Now, the treble in this still does manage to come through at times in a way that could be considered harsh. There are plenty of times where I've heard a song and been like, oh, that's just a little bit too hot. Bring it back just a little bit. But I do find the treble on this to certainly overall be a bit more recessed than things we would consider neutral, like the Sundara. And the boosted warmth lower mid-range is definitely something that's going to make the treble feel a bit lower in comparison. So out of the two headphones between this and Zeus, I would say that POSEIDON definitely sounds more relaxed. Some might call it dark bright. I kind of feel, though, as if this just leans more towards overall warmth. While the treble tuning isn't necessarily perfect, I certainly have heard worse, and this does make up for it in other faculties. So that being said, let's move into the subjective and talk about how I feel about this headphone and its technicalities. POSEIDON is definitely a step up in detail when compared side by side with Zeus. No questions asked, it is absolutely a more detailed headphone. It just depends on what the cost is. So for some people, you're gonna love this headphone if you're really, really into warmth. There's not a lot of super warm, detailed headphones out there unless you get into some really expensive ranges. And this does a great job of being super, super warm and detailed. I personally do miss out a bit on the sub bass compared to Zeus, but side by side, I definitely still find both of them to be enjoyable. Not when I'm looking for accuracy, but more when I'm listening to live music or chamber music specifically. I think that's probably where I had the biggest benefit of Poseidon's warmth and its richness. Now, Poseidon does have pretty wide stage, nowhere near as wide as the Zeus though. I would definitely say wider than your average headphone, wider than something like a 6XX, comparable to, I'd say maybe Sundara, but Sundara is definitely a more technically capable headphone, whereas the Zeus didn't have quite as much detail as this, but the width on it was certainly fantastic. Which isn't to say that I don't think the width is good on Poseidon, but it is a slightly more narrow headphone than Zeus is. Vocal timbre is a little bit more nasally on Poseidon than it was on Zeus, probably just because of the changes in elevation from 1K to 2K, though not as severely nasally as things like the GL2000 or more recently the Cindy Peacock. Despite this though, and despite the vocal timbre sometimes being a little bit strange, it does lend itself very well to live music, and I really do like the vocal clarity, so while its timbre sometimes shifts a little bit off, the clarity definitely makes up for it, the detail makes up for it. There's a lot of dynamics, a lot of delicacies to the way this reproduces vocals that I definitely enjoy. Like on the Zeus though, imaging is fantastic. I tried playing games with this. Actually, when Cyberpunk 2077 came out, I played basically almost the entire campaign of that game on the Harmonicdyne Zeus. So I decided to re-download it and play it all again with Poseidon, and it was just as fun of an experience, though I did miss the sub-bass extension of the Zeus, which while still not great was better than it is on the Poseidon. Poseidon's warmth definitely changed and added to the atmosphere of that futuristic city just a little bit in a way that I definitely enjoyed. Now, neither of these are my top pick for gaming, but they are plenty comfortable, and imaging is good enough that I think they would be a fantastic choice for someone who wants to game and doesn't necessarily need the most reference as far as tuning is concerned, or to be particularly reliant on sub-bass extension. So, I feel like there isn't a lot more to say about this headphone. I really enjoyed it for live music, like I said. I really enjoyed it for chamber music. This is going to be one that's a mixed bag. Either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. If you love really, really warm sound and you want detail, this is a great headphone for you. If you want neutrality, you should look in a different direction. That said, there are some other very warm headphones that I like a lot, one of which I'm looking at right now that I have a review coming out on in, I'd say, probably a week or so. Stick around for that, you're not going to want to miss it. And as far as picking between the two is concerned, well, that's up to you. Like I said, this is the warmer, more detailed option with Poseidon. Zeus has more soundstage and is a bit more neutral. Neither of them is objectively perfect, neither of them are made for objectivists, but both of them can be fun and are definitely for some type of listener. Now let's wrap things up with amplification. This does not take hardly any power. You could power this off of a laptop and get very similar results to if you're powering it off a nice amplifier, to be honest, as long as the DAC is of decent quality. I did try plugging this up to several tube amps. The impedance is so low though that it really doesn't seem to change much with tube amps. A few amps it did seem to get a little bit more, I'd say full in the mid-range, upper mid-range to be specific, but if you're buying this headphone and don't have an amp yet, it's really not worth spending the extra money to get a tube amp to change this just a little bit. And if you're that concerned with changing the sound of this headphone to sound different, you should probably just be buying a different headphone to begin with. Really, just about anything is going to power it fine. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Like I said, just make sure you have a quality DAC. So that is going to wrap it up. Harmonicdyne Poseidon, I will have a link to their Kickstarter in the video description if you want to check it out. And that's it for today's video, guys. If you liked it, please leave a like down below, a comment letting me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at forum.hifiguides.com. And as always, don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Until next one, guys. Peace.